Hey, it's Patrick Global Truth Bomb riffing on Saturday, February 10th at approximately 11 a.m. my time. And I guess this is Truth Bomb riffing the Super Bowl for the Clean New Deal. And I'm just going to comment on a few things that have happened in the last 48 hours to kind of bring it full circle to where, hundreds of millions of us are. And, tomorrow, as I am for every Super Bowl Sunday, extremely, I don't know if extremely is the right word, but I'm definitely looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be a good one. It was a crazy season. My prediction is the score is going to be in the 30s. Obviously it could go anyway, but any direction. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs because I don't go against Mahomes in the playoffs, given his incredible next level. I would like to see, kind of the surprise storyline of Purdy and Ayuk because I went to Arizona State and so did Ayuk, and he's one of us. And the other is the Cinderella story of course, whether or not Taylor Swift's going to be able to make it from back from Japan on time, which I'm sure she will. I don't know why there's any possibility, minus any technical glitches, that she wouldn't. But I would love to see Travis Kelce pull off a Rocky moment where he had, the game of his life and ended up MVP, and the Chiefs won something like 38-34. I could see it 34-31. I think that's going to be the call right there. And maybe he gets MVP alongside Patrick Mahomes, and then he, does something like proposes to Taylor Swift in front of the world. That would be really fun to watch. But you never know. We'll see what happens. But the fact that the game's going to be in Vegas or is in Vegas leads to a whole lot of other insane situations. And I should probably just mention I got printed in the New York Times this morning, and I'll read you what I did in my op-ed because they did this really cool feature where they wondered out loud what would the good doctor Hunter S. Thompson think, and that was off the heels of course Hunter S. Thompson's Gonzo incredible delirious work for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that then led to his coverage of the Super Bowl, of course, both printed initially in Rolling Stone magazine, which kind of commingled all of the nature of power and what the American persona is against the backdrop of kind of what the Super Bowl is able to blend, and then it becomes a power structure and all of the insanity that goes with it. And I just happened to comment on there that I said, I've always landed on the good doctor's side by way of the layers that will lead to the insanity because, yes, it is all insane. It's beautiful, however, against the tapestry of come froms and will that play out like poetry on the gridiron that inevitably morphs triumph. The storylines of Purdy and Ayuk and Mahomes and Kelsey and the rest against the backdrop of MAGAs versus Swifties. The combustion of anything goes and everything will is the point, and only the truth, the truly reckless and fearless, can extinguish the enormity of conformity. To the victors go the spoils, and the lizard brains will either will slither back in the shadows, because the human wreckage is what divines providence. Horatio never met a wall it couldn't transform, melt, or elevate. And Travolta and Thurman demonstrated that there is nothing short a shot of adrenaline can't overcome. So we must get some while we can. And boy, would I love to see Prince, against the backdrop of it all, drop the stars, excuse me, the national anthem and everything that comes with it. Look, I'm a football guy. I believe in fairness and competition and the best rise to the moment and all the stuff that happens in the background. But Vegas being what it is, I mean, it's like such a micro everything to everything that's happening throughout the country. And I believe it's going to be the most expensive Super Bowl of all time to attend, not to mention all the side betting and hustling and all the rest of it. But put that insanity in the midst of everything that's been going on in the last 48 hours. Most notably, I'll mention the 14th Amendment, Section 3, and everything that came through what I think is the most corrupt and hideous and insane lizard brain juxtaposition of a Supreme Court in my lifetime. And if you just read the 14th Amendment, Equal Protection Clause, and other rights under Section 13 that disqualifies a candidate from holding office, it just simply says, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of the president elector of the president or vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, as an officer of the United States, or as a member of state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in the insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such a disability. Look, man, my friends, it's insane what is going on. And I've been watching the analysis and kind of the trade off and whether or not by maybe asking the question if Colorado can set the tone for the entire country by removing Trump from the candidacy. The cowardly, corrupt Supreme Court, led by none other than a grandchild of former slaves, led basically what is the essence of the old guard of the Confederacy hijacking the United States, as we've seen through white right wing billionaires that own the Supreme Court, to basically betray the Constitution. Yeah, there was a reason why we have the 14th Amendment, Section 3. And I've know the arguments of whether or not he was tried in a court of law. We all saw the show on January 6th. We've all seen what MAGA, I should say, what Tucker Carlson and Fox had tried to recalibrate in the edit bay to make it look as if everybody was on a tour of the White House, in a peaceful manner that, was well within the rights of American citizens to obviously protest. And it's like, the insanity is beyond anything a drug-ridden Hunter S. Thompson in his most insane mindset could ever imagine. But yet, this is our reality. And moving forward, Tucker Carlson just interviewed Vladimir Putin, and I haven't seen the full interview yet, but I have promised my colleagues that I will, and we'll discuss that at a later date. But, some of the pieces of it that I saw tooling around on X, for example, was pretty funny, by way of Putin just smugly mentioning that Tucker Carlson was a CIA flunky. And the look on Tucker's face was absolutely hilarious and says it all, because he is such a weasel. The guy is a kingpin weasel, and everything he does is manipulative, deceptive dance of everything that only the side of guys, for example, Russell Brand and Vivek Ramaswamy, who could, say things like, and it is problematic, but at the same time, hearing it from them is just the situation that we're in. Russell and Vivek and Elon and Tucker and Glenn Greenwald and many others are on this. And Matt Taibbi, I can't believe I have to mention Matt Taibbi in the same scope of this whole thing, but are on the side of this MAGA Putin whatever. And I guarantee you there's money behind the scenes. I just know it in my gut. What it could potentially be that whoever the former national security guys that created Q, that are in the deep recesses of the deep state on the MAGA side of things, could have made promises through their agents and so forth to the likes of Matt Taibbi and said, look, we're not going to pay you directly, but we're going to guarantee X amount of eyeballs through our algorithms that are going to generate, a certain sort of revenue stream, that all you have to do is speak in this sort of tonality, in this sort of framing, of which the likes of Matt Taibbi, who was at one time one of the greatest journalists that the United States has ever produced, this side of Hunter S. Thompson, as far as I'm concerned, by way of Gonzo journalism and Rolling Stone magazine, would be in a situation where it's like everything he does is to give credence to Trump and to basically try to deteriorate what it does appear to be a deteriorating Joe Biden. And what's so frustrating to me is that I do consider Joe Biden a decent, likable human being, and in comparison to Trump, there is no comparison. But as I have stated publicly, I don't know how many times on these truth bombs, that Joe Biden is part of the Democratic revolving door Wall Street meritocracy that is the system of the fossil fuel financial military industrial hierarchy that revolves around all things Wall Street, which, as I've revealed to you over and over and over, all depends on the machinations behind shadows and different sorts of mazes and calibrations that you can't possibly understand. And I would encourage you to go through in fact, I should try to find it, and maybe I'll put that on the thumbnail of this truth bomb. even though I'm trying to make this relevant to the Super Bowl and Travis Kelce and all things Taylor for obvious reasons. But, this colleague of mine one day fed a lot of my information into an AI, and it generated a picture of a guy in a suit in front of this giant maze with this incredible clouds and gargoyles in front of the Federal Reserve and the Supreme Court, and yet you see money, strewn throughout in the clouds. And that's my journey, to try to get you to understand behind door number one, door number two, door number three, and so forth. The mechanics of the situation is that we're simply providing free money to billionaires and billionaire apparatuses. That's what we've done for 14 years. That is undergirded by a criminal syndicate. We're not a democracy. We're a corporate fascist system undergirded by a criminal syndicate that uses socialism, which is the full faith and credit of the United States, illegally, because in 2009, every major financial institution was bankrupt because they were choking on the toxic assets that they created through racketeering, all of which were different pieces of what the federal government is demonstrating now that Donald Trump is guilty of, although he was a mid-level player at best. Through all of the corruption, through all of the racketeering, through all of the deceptive acts and practices, through all of the things that are illegal, that are felonies, and in the sort of sea of tens of millions of felonies. And oh yeah, by the way, Hunter S. Thompson said, if you're going to go to Vegas and you're going to go big, don't bother with misdemeanors. Go all in on felonies, because that's what he's referring to, just the American psyche. And it's, if you're going to go big, go really big. And that's the deception racket. And what does it have to do with ultimately the clean New Deal? Well, if you understand who I am as a muckraking journalist that created the con that you can find for free, because all the American people buy are lies, at www.thecon.tv, which is a blueprint for how this entire system works and gets away with it. And yet we're in yet another cycle of banks that look like they're on the edge because of the commercial, crisis, commercial loan crisis and commercial real estate that we all understand is going on, and at least many of us who pay attention to markets, but they don't understand the nature of lending. They don't understand control fraud. They don't understand the dons, the CEOs, and most importantly, they don't understand Federal Reserve policy. Most people think, oh yeah, interest rates up and down. What are we going to do to buffer to get the economy moving again? When the mandate of the Federal Reserve is to keep low inflation, low unemployment. But what it turns out to be in reality is to maintain the assets of the ultra rich. And so what you have is billionaires spend billions because the lowest return on investment is corruption, that of course Hunter S. Thompson was telling us about, and pretty much every single piece of literature he ever wrote in pursuit of the American dream, because what you have to get past through Horatio Alger and the rest of it to achieve the American dream is to lift yourself up beyond the bondage of corruption. And that's exactly what we're in the midst of. So what we've created on our end, and by the way, I should, kind of plant this seed as well, because I do think it's extremely important for us to consider. So going back to Biden, first of all, Trump is such an abomination of everything this country stands for, unless you understand our country is what Hunter S. Thompson showed us in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Do you remember the scenes when it's the sheriffs turning into the lizard brains at the sheriff's convention that are all fucking corrupt beyond the pale? Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about here, but it's much, much worse than that. And ultimately, with the 91 indictments and this absolute insanity in the Supreme Court, given the 14th Amendment, Section 3, and all that goes with it, not to mention all of the other indictments, yeah, they're all criminal. And so Donald Trump is the perfect reflection and refraction of what the system is. Donald Trump didn't create the madness. Donald Trump exploited and benefited it as the consequence of the madness. And so when you understand that the Federal Reserve pumps tens of trillions of dollars into a financial system of grift that has complete control of the Supreme Court, complete control of the government, you understand that separation of powers and the integrity of law is a myth, not to mention free markets. Which again, when you think about Hunter S. Thompson and the Super Bowl and Taylor Swift and the Swifties versus MAGAs and everything that goes with it, it's just like, it's incredible what we're in the midst of, guys. And it seems to me, like I said in my op-ed this morning on the New York Times, yeah, but see, that's the way of the land, and the triumph rise above, and that the above to triumph. And that's what we have to do with the Clean New Deal, because we've got to smash through a tidal wave populist crusade to purge corruption and drown the fascism it fuels with the Clean New Deal, which is all of the elements that I've got in the new in the con at www.thecon.tv, and of course the new Untouchables that leads you to understand everything that I'm telling you and then some in my 400 and I think I'm up to now 70 truth bombs on Patrick Lovell Truth Bombs the Con, both solo and with my colleagues, and we're galvanizing this movement, which is the Clean New Deal, to take all of this information to force it down the throats of the American people above the misinformation and disinformation of the racketeering media that is either on the side of trying to get Trump elected so they can all have control of the system that I'm revealing to you for the benefit of the likes of Vladimir Putin and also Saudi Arabia, which already is in the driver's seat, quite frankly, given their role as swing producer. And that all leads to things that people should be concerned about with the BRICS sort of movement away from the dollar. And that's another story that I've talked about, but don't want to go into in the moment. But all of this is going to, if we had a presidential candidate that was young, dynamic, strong, vibrant, with the truth, that wasn't there to cover things up, that wasn't an 81-year-old man that basically looks like he's going to save democracy against this, insurrectionist betrayal abomination of all things in MAGA, which is the tools and the fool circus. But Biden is weak. There is no question about it. Biden is just simply a figurehead. Quite frankly, was Obama a figurehead? You know what? Obama was the guy to change everything, and then he played ball. That's who Obama was. So he has no credibility because that's all what fomented and fermented what was already there from the John Birch Society all the way through Trump and MAGA and everything that comes with it. And so the Clean New Deal is going to force through a presidential candidate that we bring to the table because he's going to be equipped with all of the truths that are going to break through and shatter, just like the 1984 commercial when Big Brother has all of the control through Orwellian doublespeak. When we smash the illusion and we break the insanity of deception and betrayal, only then can the truth prevail. And that's what we have to do. It's a story as old as civilization and mankind itself, but yet it's now up to us. Should I become the presidential candidate? Maybe. Honestly, maybe. If only to vocalize and orchestrate exactly what's going on, because what has to happen is we've got to hold this system accountable because absolute corruption corrupts absolutely. When a group of men in society discover plunder, they create a legal code to authorize it and a moral code to glorify it. It's the new Confederacy versus the new robber barons, none of which is anything that is government of, by, and for the people, which is why I am fighting for the Clean New Deal to break the bondage of misery and tyranny to lead to the resurrection of the American dream. And by the way, when we do that, we'll hold up the Lombardi Trophy, but of the presidency. Because at that point, when you hold power to account and you smash the corruption in the Supreme Court, you smash the corruption in Congress. I swear to God, I would love tens of millions of people on the National Mall, and then we surround Congress and the Supreme Court, and we don't invade it, but we protest it in the right ways where we elevate these truths to everyone in the country to have our own, shall we say, when you have like the Democratic nominee or the Republican nominee, where we nominate either whomever we have to find that we, like I've said in the past, I would love nothing more than to see Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Taylor Swift is kind of a pseudo ticket equipped with this truth just to get this information above the noise of deception of media that has hid this from you. And going back to, for example, X, I saw on X today, literally just again, it just seems like the polarization and the lies and the deception on X, the way you look at it is almost like blue versus red, like two sides of the coin. And the blues are like, all things that Trump is a lie, and it's all circulating around Trump. And then on the right, you see everything like Vivek and Russell Brand and all the rest. It's like, hey, let's talk about issues that Putin wants to penetrate the cycle to tell his story. So we're no longer in the midst of Ukraine and all that goes with it. And there's a lot more difficult and nuanced and specific dialogue that the American people should be talking about versus what Putin is going to dictate or our reactions and so on and so forth. But I don't personally believe that we should be exporting the virtues of democracy if we're not a democracy. Like I said, we're a corporate fascist state undergirded by a criminal syndicate that uses socialism, and that's the key situation. Socialism for the elite that have complete control, which is called tyranny. And now, and they're run by the mafiocracy because, quite frankly, it's all organized crime. And now they're fueling fascism. Yeah, that's the system. And so if you, me, and everyone you see who isn't a Nazi, who has the courage, integrity, and dignity to elevate liberty and justice for all and the right for sustainability, to be able to forge this pathway to the clean new deal. And oh yeah, by the way, what I am bringing to you, soup to nuts, is the revelation of how this system, with a tiny, tiny, tiny apparatus of people in the financial system, literally have looted $70 trillion from the full faith and credit of the United States for themselves to bury everybody else. Look around. Do you see homeless people out there who have no way of understanding what the world is that they live in because they're too, at this point, really out there? That's what happens when you don't understand how reality works. It also leads to conspiracy theory, the likes of, we've seen this idiot a couple of days ago that murdered his father and decapitated him because he worked for the federal government and apparently it supported Biden, which is another form that pushes MAGA way out to the extremes, to where the conspiracies they're talking about makes it such that the mainstream, and AKA Hillary Clinton, like sort of, dismissal, is like, they're insane. Yeah, they're insane. But it's not because conspiracy isn't real. I'm telling you right now, this is all racketeering. It's not rocket science. It's racketeering by the elite to live off of the, and this is the thing that pisses me off more than anything, and it goes back to the Star Spangled Banner, to me thinking of Jimi Hendrix dropping the bombs and Prince playing it during a Super Bowl, to really encapsulate the essence of the creativity of the American spirit, coming from the muck and in the trenches to elevate on high what it is that we're supposed to be. That's what translates in my head when I think about those two geniuses, by the way. But when I'm thinking about the conspiracy and the depravity, which is Hunter S. Thompson, and all of the systems that have betrayed us, then going back to everything that I've just laid out here at the end specifically, what we're doing is the mission in the Clean New Deal to purge the misery of tyranny, to create exodus from corruption and the resurrection of the American dream, because all of this shit leads to the revelation of $70 trillion that was stolen and looted from the American people, which is a lot more money than we'll see bet on the Super Bowl. To put it into perspective, 70 trillion, there's 1,000 billion and a trillion. There's more than that now. This goes back to 2022, if you want to know the truth. We're 2024. If we had $70 trillion as a starting line to basically reconfigure the United States, to rebuild our infrastructure, to transition to renewable, to create productive economy, to produce dynamism, the same type of dynamism that goes into two NFL football teams that battle and grind to get their way to the Super Bowl so that somebody can triumph. That is definitely the American spirit, based on the gladiator competition. That is the dynamism of what we are as Americans. And so the Clean New Deal is the pathway to purge the misery of tyranny, and that is our destiny. There is no time to lose. Rise, roar, revolt. It is not rocket science, it's racketeering. When you have the truth, you're bulletproof. This is the Clean New Deal. I call this the righteous grind. Failure is not an option. Enjoy the Super Bowl.